Well, it's official. Some fans are getting what they wanted. Slovis is out and Retzlaff is in for this weekend in the game against West Virginia. So we are going to take a look at what that means for this weekend and for the QB position at BYU going forward. Welcome to Saturday's Warrior. I'm Trevor, and thank you for joining us as we react to the news of Retzlaff coming in as the starting quarterback against West Virginia. But before we get into it, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really does help us a lot. So as we look at this, this is big news because after last week, a lot of people were calling for Slovis to be benched in place of Retzlaff. And we know that the coaching staff was going to do all it could to preserve Retzlaff's redshirt year this year. And so which means he's allowed to play up to 4 games in the season and the bowl game. And so we knew that barring any major injury to Slovis early on, we were most likely going to see very little of Retzlaff until the end of the season. And so the end of the season is here, and people wanted Slovis benched based on BYU's offensive performance. Now, we can look at it if you've watched Why They Do It by John Beck, where he breaks down the plays. He's very much an advocate for Slovis, and we know that Slovis has worked with Beck, so that's understandable that not all the mistakes are on Slovis, but at the same time, we'd like to see a little bit more from him. Now, the coaching staff has had his back and his support, and they said, we're not gonna bench him right now. And then later in this week, lo and behold, we get the news that Retzlaff is in. And they say it's because Slovis has been dealing with some injuries. And so, at this point in the season, I'm guessing any football player is dealing with some level of injury. So I don't know how true or untrue this is, if they're really just trying to help Slovis save face while they bench him. I have no doubt that there are some injuries to him, but the fact that he's still going to suit up in case of an emergency, so something happens to Retzlaff, does that mean that they're not going to go to QB3, that they're going to stick Slovis back in which case he can't be that injured? We know that last year they let Jaren Hall play through very significant injuries, and it was really limiting his shoulder and his throws in place of putting in one of the backup quarterbacks. And so we know that A-Rod has been very hesitant to play his backup quarterbacks. And so this morning I was texting with my buddy Adam. You may know him from our segments that we do, our weekly picks for the Big 12 and other top matchups each week. And he pointed out that, Retzlaff is really A-Rod's first real guy that he's went and found and recruited and brought in. And so there's a lot on the line here. A-Rod did a lot to work with and help develop 2 NFL quarterbacks in Zach Wilson and Jaren Hall. And so there's a lot on the line here for A-Rod as Retzlaff comes in. Now, so I don't know if this means that Retzlaff's going to continue to start throughout the season. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit more of Slovis. I'm sure that they'd like to help him kind of build his stock back up at some point. But if Retzlaff comes in and plays lights out, then I don't know how they can really justify that as long as he's healthy, especially as they invest in the future, since he would have up to 2 more years here at BYU. And so and it makes a lot of sense. Whether he's great or not, he's getting more reps, he's getting more game time experience. And maybe we'll see the same problems persist because the O-line can't, block for the run and our receivers aren't getting open or whatever it is. The other thing I don't know is, was Retzlaff getting all the reps or most of the reps or at least half the reps throughout this week in practice, or is he also just finding out? Because otherwise it's going to put BYU in a tough spot, and they're going to have probably limited play calls. On the other hand, what does this mean for the game this weekend? Well, we know that West Virginia has been preparing for Slovis. We know that they've been licking their chops. They've been excited to have this opportunity at redemption against Slovis. They've already took revenge on Pitt from last year, And as we know, that Slovis was the quarterback then when Pitt beat West Virginia in a really exciting, awesome game. And so I'm sure they would have loved to have seen him. Instead, we have this backup. And now BYU is no stranger to playing against backup quarterbacks. We did it with TCU, and we got completely demolished, as has kind of been the history of BYU and TCU, but also faced a backup in Texas. And now he would, well, and Texas Tech. So that was 3 weeks in a row. And, Texas Tech, we won, but that was a third string quarterback. Texas, he looked a little bit raw, and but at the same time, he's super talented. I have no doubt that he's gonna, in time develop. So whereas we got completely carved up by TCU. I know I did that in a weird order, but my point being is there's a lot of different possibilities. It could be that with limited film and limited preparation time for Retzlaff, that West Virginia could find some difficulty in knowing how to game plan for him. On the other hand, he could be, thrown in there and completely overwhelmed or unprepared and not ready, and could just really get demolished against a very stingy defense. So it's hard to say what'll happen. I kind of like the element of uncertainty that it provides against West Virginia. Maybe it gives BYU the spark we need. And even if he does play poorly, again, it gets him those reps, starts getting him developed, gets him a little bit more chemistry with the receivers. And hopefully that means coming into next year that he will be that much more prepared to come in and start for BYU and help us win some games. I had another point, and it's escaping me at the moment, but I do look forward to seeing what we have in Retzlaff. I feel bad for Slovis. He has really ingratiated himself with the program and done really well in representing BYU, and I like him, and I think he has some moments that are just brilliant out there, and a lot of other moments that are not quite as great. Again, I don't think they're all on him, but you'd like to see just a little bit more. So it is what it is at this point. Who knows if it's really him being demoted, he's banged up, or some combination of both. But regardless, he will be out, and we'll see our backup quarterback and presumably the future at QB at BYU for the next couple years. And I really love, and this was my point, is that he's not coming in completely fresh. He's not a freshman or redshirt freshman. He has a lot of experience. He was the top JUCO recruit, and he just lit things up the last couple years. And so I like to think that experience at a slightly higher level will help translate to this game, as opposed to someone coming in from high school and not having that same amount of experience. So that does bode well too. But again, you got to have the system, you got to have the guys around you to be able to do that. And then the play calling, they've really hopefully understand his strength and are prepared to make play calls that will allow him to play to those. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about this change. Are you excited to see Retzlaff, or do you think that Slovis gives BYU the best chance to win still? And what do you expect to see out of Retzlaff? Let me know in the comments, and like the video and subscribe to the channel. And we'll see you next time. Go Cougs!